Will a Bitcoin 2.0 ever make the current Bitcoin obsolete? The answer is no, but let's talk about why. There are two big reasons. One is called the blockchain trilemma, and the other is understanding the design space that Bitcoin exists within. So let's talk about the blockchain trilemma. The blockchain trilemma is that any decentralized system has to balance security, scalability, and decentralization. And it's called a trilemma because you can only have 2 out of 3. Bitcoin optimized for the two most important aspects, which are decentralization and security. And it allows other solutions to scale, which is the third element. And so effectively, the trade-off Bitcoin made was being the most secure and the most decentralized platform for money, which are the two most important things. So in order to try to improve Bitcoin, you can try to improve on the only aspect of Bitcoin that is not fully optimized for, which is throughput. The problem is there's already good solutions like the Bitcoin Lightning Network, or in the case of something like the Coinbase debit card, it piggybacks on the Visa network. Or if you're using services like Cash App or PayPal or Coinbase or River, they handle a lot of the transaction volume on what's called a layer 2 solution, L2, which is they just take it off of or abstract it off of the base chain and handle scalability that way, which is way better to do it because you cannot get scalability on the main chain without giving up security and decentralization, which again makes it worse money. So as soon as you understand that, you understand any improvement to Bitcoin comes with a trade-off of either decentralization or security. And because decentralization and security are the two most important aspects of a digital money, I should say, because decentralization and security are the two most important aspects of a digital money, there is no way to improve on Bitcoin without somehow making it worse on one or both of those vectors. So the first reason to understand why there will not be a viable Bitcoin 2.0 that competes with Bitcoin 1.0 is because you have to make something worse about digital money in order to try to do that. And you have to give up either security or decentralization somehow. And nobody that wants digital money is willing to give up decentralization or security. And again, you can get scalability through lots of mechanisms like the Bitcoin Lightning Network and other layer 2 solutions that take a lot of the small, pennies and that sort of thing, transaction volume off of the main chain if you need to, if it needs to scale that way in the future. Right now, the Bitcoin network doesn't need that sort of stuff, but in the future, if it does, all of that stuff is fully functional. Next, for the other reason there will not be a Bitcoin 2.0, is you have to understand the design space that Bitcoin exists within, and you have to realize that it's possible to invent something that is optimal for which any change makes it worse. So let's say you have a shape on a 2-dimensional shape, and you want that shape. You decide, okay, I'm going to try to make the perfect, the smoothest shape. So you try 3 corners, you try 4 corners, you try 5 corners. And as you add additional corners, you realize that an octagon is more smooth around the edges than a, pentagon, because there's 8 sides instead of 6. But at some point you invent a circle. And when you invent a circle, you cannot make the sides of that shape smoother. Or more uniform, I should say. You cannot make the sides of a circle more uniform no matter what you do. You can say, okay, but let's push one side in or push the other side in. And instead of making it more uniform, you end up with an oval, which is actually less uniform. So it is possible with shapes to come up with a perfect shape that meets a certain criteria. So for example, a circle has the most uniform sides to it because it's the same all the way around. A sphere has the most uniform sides to it as well for a 3-dimensional sort of thing. So let's assume that you needed a 2-dimensional or a 3-dimensional thing that was completely uniform, and that was the optimal shape for money as a hypothetical example. Again, you can't improve on a circle or a sphere because that is the only uniform option. So Bitcoin exists in the same sort of design space where every decision that Satoshi Nakamoto made when he invented Bitcoin, every one of those decisions was optimized for digital scalable currency. And if you change any of those things to try to improve it, you make it worse. So Bitcoin has a 10-minute block time. It has a 1 megabyte block limit. It has, I don't know, I could go through like a gazillion different attributes. It uses, certain cryptographic signatures. It uses the SHA-256 hashing algorithm. It does all these sort of things. And when you understand Bitcoin, you understand that if you change any of those things, you make it worse somehow. So if there was going to be a viable Bitcoin 2.0, there has been 20,000 different attempts to do that. So over the last 17 years that Bitcoin's been around, tons of people have copied Bitcoin's code and tried to improve on it somehow. There's been Litecoin, there's been Bitcoin Cash, there's been Dogecoin, there's been literally dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of different cryptocurrencies that were all trying to improve on Bitcoin somehow. And they all failed to become a competitor to Bitcoin because every one of them had to make major trade-offs that no one wanted to make as it relates to a digital currency. So all of them had to somehow make money worse in order to change something about it. And again, if you make it worse, it doesn't compete with Bitcoin because people use Bitcoin. So if there was going to be a viable alternative, it would have been invented already because people have had 17 years to work on it. And it would have to break the blockchain trilemma, which nobody has figured out how to do. It's not possible to do something like that. It's like trying to find a product that is, fast, cheap, and easy or something like that. Or, low priced, economical, and whatever. Anyway, you just end up with these trilemmas you can't break. Or, again, you have to invent something in an alternative design space that's just not software. It's not technical. It have to exist in some holographic alternative reality like a metaverse, like in Spider-Man or something like that. You can't invent something in the current physical world that is better than Bitcoin for all of those reasons. So hopefully that helps. I'm here for anything you need. Reach out anytime, as always.